So hi, thank you, Stuart, and thanks for you guys for coming. I guess I should start off by saying, one, I should have checked out the sponsors before I started here. Just an apology, I might have things in my talk that may offend. So if I take down Creative Mornings, you can talk to me about that later. Also, there is some Mad Men spoilers, so if you were saving yourself for Mad Men, you probably should have watched it by now if you're actually a true fan, so deal with it. And I think that's all of the warnings before the talk. But just thank you for coming. I don't usually take the time to truly critically think about what I do. I don't take the time to do that. And so this is sort of a therapy session for me and maybe for you. So welcome to my therapy session. As Stuart mentioned, I am a graphics editor at the New York Times, which is unusual because I don't have a particular beat. I cover everything from emoji reactions to Syria to, I don't know, golf culture to government shutdowns. So there's a wide variety of topics that I cover. I'm also a designer and an illustrator and an animator. And I do a variety, so I'm both a reporter, a writer, and a designer. And I'm also a balloon animal artist. So again, I'm pretty unconventional in terms of what I do at the Times. I also dabble a little bit in code. I would never call myself a developer. I would never call myself a coder. I merely dabble. And oh yeah, so there's a piece. I don't know if you can hear it. But it's people who are announcing goals at the World Cup. Oh yeah, he goes on. So these are the kind of stories I do. I do things that sort of not just inform you on what's happening in the world, but also kind of delight you in some way, hopefully, or provoke you in a way that you weren't thinking. I also write and design children's books. This came out last February, so here's my first plug. Go buy it. It's available on Amazon if you like that, or your local book dealer of choice. It's like 15 bucks. No big deal. I also make fish talk.
Grind! Kickflip! Thrasher! 360! Grind! Wheels!
Wheels.
Kurt Cobain!
So yeah, I have a hard time explaining what exactly I do, but these are the variety of things that I do. And I really wish I could just come up here and talk about what I do professionally. It'd be really easy for me to talk about how I'm unique and how my point of view is so interesting and provocative, and how it has meaning in the world and blah, blah, blah. But that would be really easy because designers love talking about themselves. They love talking about themselves, and it's gotten to the point where we're a little delusional. So I don't know if many of you saw this documentary that came out a couple weeks ago from InVision called Design Disruptors. Anyway, does this sound familiar? If it doesn't sound familiar, I'm just going to show you a quick clip.
People look around and they realize that we are living in what's essentially revolutionary times.
Over the last 5 years, there's been several billion-dollar companies started by designers, and that's a new phenomenon.
Companies are starting to get closer to the idea that if you can create an amazing experience, it's going to help improve your business.
Engineers think about computers and think about systems. Does this actually functionally work? Where designers have to think about people and their emotional state and their quirks and idiosyncrasies.
At its best, design is human. It's not about, does it have drop shadows, is it pretty? It's more about the connection I have to it.
when we think about designing products, we're trying to tap into things that are natural and to like and share things. These are things that existed well before Facebook did.
We are just in the infancy of developing a whole language around gestures. The first time that I zoomed was like, oh, fantastic. I almost want to get to a point where I can caress products because that's humane. I don't click people.
Okay, he wants to caress products. That's cool. I'm sure some of this tickled a lot of you, and like reminded you like why you live in San Francisco and like why you do what you do. Design is human. Design is connecting with people. Design is caressing your devices. But what I think is really offensive about this video, and again, not the people. I'm not offended by the people, but I'm offended by how they speak. They speak on behalf of rich, very well-off companies. And they talk about design like it's an inherently good thing. And design is not good unto itself. Design is, in fact, neutral. So when you talk about design, design is not a philosophy. Design is not a revolution. Design is not a cause. Design is neutral. So when designers talk from a group of very influential companies and they proselytize design as a solution to the world's problems, it's important to recognize that when they say design, what they really mean is money, right? They're talking about, oh, I wasn't playing the unicorn the whole time? So let's just watch that for a second. Okay. One more time. There we go. All right. They're talking about money, right? This is what they're talking about. They're not talking about design. Sometimes their interests can be aligned with the public's, and that's awesome, but sometimes they're not. And they don't need to be. In fact, they're more accountable to the interests of the company they work for than the people in the community that they live in. They're saying design, but again, don't forget that design is capitalism. So when designers go from people like you and me, and they elevate themselves to their role in the change, like let's say, so they say, I want to enact change. But really what they're saying is, I want to enact change, not the change is important. And when you elevate yourself above the change, that's when I get all prickly. So don't get me wrong. It's not that design can't make things better. There's nothing wrong with having the aspirations to make a difference. It's just, my problem is how tone-deaf designers have become recently. And I don't understand how we have become so self-important. And I suspect it's because designers, like many people, see their profession everywhere. Everything is design, right? Design is architecture. Design is human interaction. Design is this pillow. Design is cutting cheese. Professionals see their craft in everything. And when you think about it, and I mean really think about it, everything is meat distribution engineering, right? So it's this self-important rhetoric that makes talking to designers about design like talking to a brick wall about bricks. Designers will do anything to convince themselves that we're not in a service industry. So why are we so desperate to make ourselves feel better? For some designers, it's because we work in an industry where engineers are gaining more and more power, and we feel like we have something to prove. For other designers, we feel guilty, and we have to reconcile what we do professionally with the world that we live in. We want to have impact on the world, so we repeat our daily affirmations. On the way to work, design can change the world. On our way to yoga, design can change the world. At therapy, design can change the world. It's liberal piety. We're not an evil Wall Street trader, right? That's what we think is evil. But we can't also pat ourselves so hard on the back because we listen to NPR or we carry and make canvas tote bags. Design feels like a very precise cover for liberal white guilt. You do everything, right? You recycle, you're vegetarian most of the time. You work for a company that aspires to truly change the world for the better, but you really haven't done any of the hard work yet. So why do we believe in this mantra? It comes from designers turned CEOs. It comes from Brian Chesky at Airbnb. I was taught at RISD that design can change the world. It comes from job descriptions. As a brand designer, you have the rare opportunity to change the world. I love this passage from the New Yorker from just a couple years ago. A few years ago, when Barack Obama visited one Silicon Valley campus, an employee of the company told a colleague that he wasn't going to take time from his work to go hear the president's remarks, explaining, on making more of a difference than anybody in government could possibly make. Right, okay. So a New Yorker reads this, and they think, surely that is a joke. To a San Franciscan, they hear that and they go, he's a hard worker. Right? So many people here seem to think their social responsibility is fulfilled by their profession, not by a social or political action. It's just remarkably convenient and kind of arrogant. These creative mornings are supposed to be about learning something new, right? Maybe network and meet Jessica Hish, maybe meet her baby. Maybe talk to someone that you follow on Twitter. Maybe you're here to get a new job. Maybe you're here to poach someone for the job the startup that you're trying to build. We're all here to make connections. Some of us are here to maybe assuage the guilt we already have and know we have because we're a designer, instead of doing something actually meaningful. And we've branded ourselves as agents of change because what we actually are actually just designers. We cannot congratulate ourselves, right? We drink fancy coffee, we eat free catered dinners, and we love Instagramming our like new woven little textiles on Instagram, right? Meanwhile, the median cost to rent a one-bedroom in San Francisco is $3,800. Our idealism has gotten so desperate that we equally applaud efforts to combat malaria in Africa with a $1,500 smart oven that preheats your dinner to save you a little extra time to CrossFit or maybe Netflix and chill. Designers have become a parody onto themselves without even knowing it. Hand lettering homeless signs is not how you help people in desperate need. No one will ever need to mock designers more effectively than designers because we lack the capacity to understand how hilarious we're behaving. I could be taking this too seriously. Okay, fine, that's fair. But let's say I buy into this mantra that design can disrupt the economy. Now you can sublet your apartment and, in some way pay for your vacation that you're taking when you're not home. That's pretty cool. But it's important to recognize that there is no change without consequence, right? So companies like Airbnb, and there's like 60 other companies like Airbnb, they're just symbolic of recent news, that they aim to disrupt the hotel lobby, for instance, but it's at the cost of displacing thousands of people, because Airbnb users aren't just moms and dads who rent out your old room. San Francisco is a city with a housing shortage for residents, which are instead used for tourists or our parents when they come visit us, right? The San Francisco Chronicle reported that hundreds of homes that could be available for long-term leases are instead listed as full-time vacation rentals in the city. Design disruptors seem to think anything that helps you bypass institutions like the government or regulation is by default empowering or liberating. There are people out there unable to pay for healthcare or insurance, but what if we designed an app that those people could help, like they could exercise more? Or they could eat better. Or maybe we could give them a job driving around town because no one else will hire them. That's empowering, right? And that's great. We're exercising empathy in some way. We want to help people. But when you only channel it through your iPhone, you're giving yourself a pass without having to do any actual hard work. And New Yorkers think they've seen poop on the streets. They haven't seen poop on the streets until they come to San Francisco, right? And we joke about it, like, a lot, actually. And it's great. I have a sense of humor about San Francisco, the highs and the lows. But like the reality of it is that someone needed to poop, and they had nowhere else to poop. And people will come here. We all came here. I mean, some of us are from here probably, but most of us came here. And it's advertised as this fantasy wonderland, and you will find that. You will find that a utopia. But you will also find a level of desperation that is outrageous for a city that is supposed to be modern and liberal. So, granted, these companies are just one drop in a bucket of confounding factors of San Francisco. And to be perfectly fair, one company, 3 companies, 10 companies, they aren't the reason why San Francisco exists the way it does. But it's hard to not point out them as a punchline, right? How San Francisco is a fancy place with all these free meals, but it turns out, I don't know, I've only lived here 2 years, but San Francisco seems like a pretty horrible terrible city. That it's falling apart. These people need help, not Apple Watches. So I like the idea of changing the world, but I really just want to see designers change San Francisco. And I do have a sense of humor about it. I mean, it's important. You can't take yourself too seriously, right? That's like, if anything you take away from this, you can't take yourself too seriously. But you have to still acknowledge that there's this incredibly big problem, bigger than anyone could have really expected. And it's really hard to articulate to people who don't live here how bad it is. We just can't assume that technology will fix all of the country's problems, like housing, employment, or healthcare. These are complicated issues, and our smartphone can't simply circumvent bureaucracy to fix them. These are real problems that are compounded by extreme gap in wealth, and I need to be clear that it's not technology or design that has created this problem, but they haven't really made it that much better, despite all this propaganda to change and disrupt the world. So I'm not anti-tech, right? I'm not anti-innovation. I'm not anti-money. I like money. I'm just anti-assholes, right? I'm anti-bravado. I'm anti that disposition that you think you are more important than someone else. I like money, right? I mean, I have 2 kids. I have a family to support. So I understand when I hear that documentary, when I hear designers talk about design in that way, when they talk about it in a way that is holier than thou, it's because they're trying to sell design, right? Would they actually talk about design like that in a bar, one-to-one with someone? I hope not, but I overhear conversations that lead me to believe otherwise. So it is my opinion that designers don't need a documentary, right? What we need, a documentary about design's place in the world. What we really need is just to chill the fuck out, right? There we go. Your job will not save you. Most of these Creative Morning talks are to make you feel better about design. Mine obviously is not that one. This free breakfast, which is generous, thank you to the sponsor, is not going to solve your guilt problem. It's just the problem of living. It doesn't mean you're evil. It just means you have to reckon, like a grown-up, like we all have to do, with being alive on this planet. Yes, I too have chosen design as my profession, but I have come to peace with precisely this trade that I have made to compensate for that debt and how I'm on this planet. In my own way, with the people I care about. So just let design be design. It doesn't have to be about consumption, so don't confuse selling or buying shit with creative expression. Just reckon design with your own values. I can't tell you what your values are. I can't tell you who to work for, and I don't want to sound like I figured it out because I haven't. How long should you work and how hard do you have to work before you accept you're doing the right thing? I don't know. But the first step is getting over yourself. Just try to be a good citizen, be a good helper, just do the basic things. And in that way, you're in the service of a good message. Thank you.